Learning question. What is the context of Noughts and Crosses? What is context? Context refers to a time, a place, a group of people. Malorie Blackman sets her story, Noughts and Crosses, on an alternative Earth where there are not 5 continents, but one giant one called Pangaea. This means that people have not spread out over the whole planet. In class, we found out that the basic model for human beings is to have dark or black skin. Human beings began in Africa and spread out over millions of years into areas where there was less sunlight. Lighter skin became an evolutionary advantage. Because this happened over such a long time, people of lighter skin did not think they were related to those with dark skin. All their pictures of ancient peoples and gods showed them with white skin. When they met people with dark skin, they thought they were of a different race and inferior. In Noughts and Crosses, this process has happened the other way around. Only a minority of humanity moved to the northern edge of Pangaea. Civilization has been more stable in the centre, and people with dark skin form the dominant cultures. Although this is an alternative Earth, Malorie Blackman makes the context close to ours. She flips everything so that it is dark-skinned people who have all the power. In her world, it is white people who have a history of being used as slaves. In our world, European empires in the American continents were guilty of kidnapping millions of black people and using them as slaves. Today, America has a dark-skinned president, but he lives and works in a house that was built by black slaves. Just like our world, Noughts and Crosses has a history of slavery. That slavery is long past, but people are still treated unfairly because of the colour of their skin. Callum's family live segregated lives from people like Seffi's family. Segregation describes how people are forced to live in separate places because of the colour of their skin, their religion, their original country, their culture. This still happens today in the world, but it was most famous in South Africa from the 1940s to the 1990s. There, black people had to live in separate, poorer areas, go on separate trains and buses, use separate toilets. There were even separate beaches. Black people were blocked from good jobs and were not allowed to vote. In South Africa, white people spoke a version of Dutch called Afrikaan. Their word for white people is blancs. In Noughts and Crosses, white people are insulted with the word blanca. In some states of America, black people were educated in different, far poorer schools from white people. This was judged illegal in 1954. In 1957, 9 black children tried to enter their previously white school for the first time. There were riots. The children had to be protected by soldiers. They were treated terribly at the school. One girl had acid thrown in her eyes. If they reacted to the bullying in a violent manner, they were punished far more severely by the teachers than the white children. Malorie Blackman shows us Callum and Seffi experiencing a similar context in their school. People have long fought against racist discrimination. The majority of people have struggled through the use of law, personal example, politics, and peaceful protest. But they have often been faced with injustice and violence. Others have turned to violence as part of the struggle. Malorie Blackman also shows this context in Noughts and Crosses. So the novel and the play adaptation you are reading are set in a completely different world, but the context is very close to our own. You may want to consider the following questions. Why is it important for Malorie Blackman to make her world so similar to our own? Why does she reverse the racism so that it is light-skinned people who are discriminated against? How does this context affect Callum and Seffi? Thank you for listening.